You thought everything is fine until you realize that your child is struggling all on their own and you didn't see it. Hi, I'm Dr. Maria Grace. I'm a psychotherapist who helps people heal from trauma. Today, we're going to talk about cutting and what you can do when you find out that your child is cutting. Let's dive in. So, I'm sitting across a mother. We'll call her Jan, and she's in her late 30s. She has 2 kids, and she's telling me about her daughter, Mary. Mary is 15, and Jan tells me how she's always been so shy. She's so kind and sweet and gets straight A's. But this year has been a little different. Her grades has started dropping, and Jan thought maybe it was just that high school is harder than middle school. But Jan also started noticing other things, like Mary was spending more time in her room than usual, which is totally normal for a teenager. She's quieter than usual, a little more on edge. And when Jan would ask her how she's doing, she'd get that quick, I'm fine, and the conversation would end there. Jan told herself that this is probably normal. I mean, we all remember being a teenager, right? Maybe she's stressed, maybe she just needs a little space. So she didn't really want to push. But then she started noticing a little more each day. Mary was wearing long sleeves. Even when it's 80 degrees warm outside, she would kind of pull away every time she'd get close to her. And she's just had this feeling that something wasn't right, something wasn't adding up. And then one day, as Mary is reaching for something up on the cupboard, her sleeve kind of drops, and Jan caught a glimpse of her bare arm, and she knew exactly what she was looking at. Mary had been cutting. And in that moment, everything just connected for Jan. All those small things from before didn't feel so small anymore. And she's kind of in shock, and she quickly went into panic mode, as most of us would. And she starts asking her, why would you do this? What's going on? Right? Her voice being more loud than she intended. And of course, her daughter, also shocked, tells her, what are you talking about? It's nothing. And then she dashes off to her room and shuts the door. And she leaves Jan standing there, just not really knowing what to do. She wants to cry. She's worrying and wondering, how long has this been going on, and how could she have missed it? And she finds herself just staring at this kindergarten photo of Mary on the mantle and just realizing how much her child had been carrying something heavy on her own. And it makes her feel sad and so angry. Angry not at her daughter, but angry at herself. She's feeling so guilty and feeling like the worst mom. If this has been your reaction, just know that you are not a bad parent. You were scared, and that fear comes from how much you care. So take a moment to ground yourself. Pause, breathe, because there is an opportunity here to repair and reconnect with your child. And after Jan takes time to process her emotions, she, takes some deep breaths, she calms down, and she goes back to Mary's room. She sits with her and she tells her, I am so sorry for how I reacted earlier. I didn't handle that the way I wanted to. I just didn't know what to do. And I feel terrible for not being there to help you sooner. And in that moment, something shifts between the both of them. This is when repair happens, when parents are able to come back, take accountability, and show their child how to repair after a tear. Tear is the hard moment that happened. This builds trust. And it shows your child that the relationship is safe even when things are hard. Let's start with, so what is cutting? Cutting is a form of self harm. It means intentionally hurting the body as a way to cope. So many would just take a sharp object and just start cutting their arms, their legs. And there are other forms of self harm, such as skin picking or pulling your hair. But cutting, there can be shame around it, especially if there are visible marks. And it can start to affect relationships, their daily routines, and how they show up in school and with their friends. But what's important to understand here is that most of the time, self harm is not about wanting to end their life. It's a behavior that shows that they need better ways to cope with what they're feeling. And the good news is, these skills can be learned. Recent data shows that about 17 to 20% of young people have engaged in self harm at some point. So, this is more common than most people realize. Mary has been struggling with her friend group. She started feeling left out. Plans were being made without her. They were not speaking with her. The conversation changes around her. She wasn't included the way she used to be. And there are so many reasons a teen can feel overwhelmed. And sometimes it's not just one thing. It can be school pressure, social dynamics, their grades, friendships changing, feeling left out, breakups, expectations at home, or even just trying to figure out who they are and where they fit. And for some, there may also be deeper layers like anxiety, past experiences that haven't been processed, or feeling like they have to hold everything in. And this is where neuroscience becomes really important to understand because a teen's brain is still developing. The part of the brain that helps with decision making, impulse control, and being able to slow things down and understand them, which is the prefrontal cortex, is not fully developed yet. And at the same time, the emotional part of the brain, like the amygdala, is very active. So, what that means is that their body can feel things very intensely, but they don't yet have the same capacity to regulate or make sense of those feelings the way an adult can. Their body feels it fully. Their brain is still learning how to manage it. And what we're seeing in research is that some kids feel things more deeply than others. Some are more sensitive, more aware, more affected by what's happening around them. And because of that, they can also feel overwhelmed more easily. I was one of those kids. I still am. As a child, I was journaling all the time. I cried easily, and I was always trying to keep myself busy just to manage what I was feeling without me knowing, of course. I was just, I was writing poems. Would sing my heart out when no one was listening. I danced, even climbing up a tree to a rooftop and getting into so much trouble. But back then, I was just being a kid, I thought. Back then, we knew nothing about ADHD, but since we're on that topic, I just want to address that having ADHD doesn't cause cutting, but kids with ADHD often feel more things quickly, more intensely, more deeply, and have a harder time slowing things down. I want to add that being sensitive is not the problem. It means your child feels deeply. And when they learn how to regulate those feelings, this sensitivity becomes a strength. I've learned to embrace this part of myself over the years, and it's what allows me to do the work I do today. It's what helps me truly connect with others. It really is a gift the moment we stop fighting it and start understanding it. And this is part of my mission. It's something that I care so deeply about. Helping children learn early on how to understand what they're feeling. It's the reason why I wrote Hello Flutters, to show children that those uncomfortable feelings in their body are not something to be afraid of, but something that they can learn to understand. When intense emotions comes up, and without the tools to manage it, this builds up and this intensity needs somewhere to go. And I know that from the outside, they're hurting themselves, but from their experience, it can feel like relief. Cutting is what creates that release. The reason for this is that the body releases endorphins, which are chemicals produced by the brain that can reduce pain and create a brief sense of relief. And it also changes the focus from the emotional pain, which they can't understand or name, to something more physical that they can control. So for a short time, their system feels calmer, but we know it doesn't last. But then the brain remembers. So the next time something happens, maybe another moment where Mary gets into another argument with her friends, that same intense emotions builds up again. And then the brain will go back to what works before. And that's how the cycle begins. And this is why we don't just focus on stopping the behavior. We must focus on giving that intensity somewhere else to go. Because our bodies aren't meant to hold things in. Like food that we eat, the water we drink, the air that we breathe, what we take in, we must let out. And we must let them move through our body. The same goes for our emotions. If we keep it to ourselves, when we hold them in or push them down, they don't disappear. They'll build. So what we can do is to help them find a way to release it in safer ways. Things like holding an ice cube, cold water, just movement, walking, exercising, breathing, meditation, or even using their voice or creativity, journaling. All those different types of activities can be an alternative to cutting. I do have a list of these on my website. Feel free to download them by visiting mariagracewolf.com. Another really important piece here is that often gets overlooked is connection. So when Mary feels overwhelmed, what helps her the most is not always more talking. It's feeling safe with her mom, sitting together, going for a drive, watching something side by side. Doesn't have to have a long conversation. Just being present with them is helpful because those small moments can help their system feel more calm. It also helps to put simple words to what they're feeling because if she can't name it, it will feel bigger. So instead of asking, what's wrong? You will ask, does this feel like a lot right now? Or are you feeling overwhelmed? And that's helping them give words, simple words to name their emotions. And once you can name it, it becomes easier to manage. And lastly, another really important thing to pay attention to is your own response as their parent, because your child can sense your tone, read your body language more than they can hear what you're saying if you're angry, right? I mean, you don't have to hide how you feel, but how you show it matters. And staying calm, even if you're feeling a lot inside, it will help their body start to calm down too. And that's what allows them to stay in the conversation and hear you instead of shut down. If the cutting continues or starts to get more intense, this is where SATing support comes in again. You don't have to do this alone. There are a lot of resources, and I will include them in those downloadable guides that I have on my website. And with the right support at home and with a therapist, teens like Mary can learn how to manage their feelings in healthier ways. And I know that this can feel like a lot, but the fact that you're here trying to understand, trying to figure out ways to help your child already says everything about how much you care for your child. You don't have to have all the answers. What matters is your presence, your willingness to stay and help them, and your openness to understand your child. That's what makes a difference. So if you take anything from this, remember these three things. Your response matters. It can either keep the connection open or shut it down. So ground yourself. Find that pause to take that breath beforehand. Number 2 is cutting is not about attention. It's about trying to cope with emotional pain that feels overwhelming. And third, don't stop at the behavior, because underneath it is a young person who is overwhelmed and trying to cope the only way they know how. So find out what's making them feel overwhelmed. If this helped you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who might need it, because that will help other people find this video. And if you'd like a list of coping strategies, again, I created a simple worksheet you can download from my website, along with the resources. And in the next video, I'll walk you through what to say and what to avoid in these conversations about cutting with your child. So be sure to subscribe. Until next time, please stay kind and take care of yourself.